Hello everyone, I'm here today to talk about the Jhalak Prize, who has the winner announced on the 25th of May. And I have read 4.5 of the books on the shortlist, which are 6 books. So I thought I will talk a little bit about the books and what I think has good chances to win. So the 6 books in the shortlist are The First Woman by Jennifer Nansubuga Makumbi, Inferno by Catherine Cho, My Darling from the Lions by Rachel Long, Antiemetic for Homesickness by Romalyn Ante, Rainbow Milk by Paul Mendez, and Are We Home Yet by Katy Massey. And this prize mixes fiction, non-fiction, poetry. So there are actually 2 of each in the shortlist. So I'll just start with the first category, which is poetry, and those are My Darling from the Lions and Antiemetic for Homesickness. Now, I have not finished Antiemetic for Homesickness. I've read, a few of the poems, but I think I already was able to get some kind of feeling about the poems and the style and the topics of the collection. And this is about the experience of not living in your home country or like the country you were born on. This Romalyn Ante is a Filipino author or has Filipino roots, and she talks about how it feels to be Filipino in the UK, but also a lot of the poems are about the NHS, and the two things interconnect because there are a lot of Filipino workers in the NHS. And as I also know there are a lot of Spanish workers in the NHS. I think in general the NHS relies a lot on immigration. So it's kind of funny that in the middle of the pandemic is when they decide that Brexit is a good idea and they finally go through it. But yeah, so that's more or less the topic of the collection, and I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was really, really powerful, and it's something that I never thought to be discussed in poetry, which I don't know why, but I thought it was really, really well done, and it was really, really powerful. And the other poetry, My Darling from the Lions, is about the experience of being a black woman in the UK. And again, it talks about black bodies, it talks about feminist ideas, that kind of thing. And I think that even though when I was reading it, I found it quite interesting, I cannot remember that much anymore, and I had read it like a month ago. And also I think the topics have been explored before. So although I think it's a good collection, I don't think that is as special as Antiemetic for Homesickness, and I have heard similar opinions from other people. So I think if a poetry collection wins, it has to be Antiemetic for Homesickness. I think also because of the topics are so relevant today that it just makes sense. So yeah, those are the 2 poetry collections in the shortlist. Then the 2 non-fiction are Inferno by Catherine Cho and Are We Home Yet by Katy Massey, and these are both memoirs. Well, Are We Home Yet? It in the back of the book it says that it's a novel, but it actually kind of reads like a memoir, and I have heard people describe it as a memoir, so I guess it's blurring that line, but let's just say for the sake of now that they are both memoirs. I have not read Inferno. Inferno is about the experience of the author with postpartum depression and psychosis, and I thought that might not be something I want to be reading now. So I didn't read it, but I have heard great things about it. Are We Home Yet? I've read, and it is about Katy Massey growing up as a mixed child. Her mom was white British, her dad was Jamaican, and she grows up with her mom in Leeds, and her mom is a sex worker. So it is about the relationship between mother and daughter based on that fact. and what happens when Katy finds out that her mom is a sex worker, and her reaction to that, and how her feelings evolved about that topic. And also because Katy Massey is a mixed race person, she talks also about race. She talks also about being a woman and being a bigger woman, which are all very interesting things. And I think that the book was quite good at exploring these things and giving perspectives on these topics, and especially for the sex workers. I think it humanized sex workers a lot. The only criticism I have is that the structure was going back and forth a lot, and it didn't have a reason to do that, in my opinion. So it just felt that it was doing that for the sake of, I don't know, creating some mystery that was not there. And I think that took me out of the story. I was not able to connect with the story as much because it took me a while to understand that these things were happening. So yeah, although I think it is a valuable read and I'm glad I read it, I don't think Are We Home Yet is going to win. Again, I don't know about Inferno because I have not read it, but based on what people have been saying, I think it has a good chance to win. And then the last two books are the two novels, The First Woman by Jennifer Nansubuga Makumbi and Rainbow Milk by Paul Mendez. I have read both. I have liked both. The First Woman by Jennifer Nansubuga Makumbi is about this teenage girl in Uganda, and she grows up with her grandparents, and she's never completely accepted because something that happened in the past of her parents, but she doesn't really understand what happened. And she's feeling, at the beginning of the book, she's feeling something strange in her. So she goes to the witch doctor of the town, the sorcerer woman of the town. And there she finds these mythical stories of the Buganda people, and how she fits within those myths and the power of those myths for her life. So it has that little touch of magical realism, which is not actual magical realism. There's no magic happening, but it's more about connecting the myths with the real life. A bit like if you have read Freshwater by Katy Massey, that way of understanding one's life based on the mythology of a culture rather than scientific explanations. But that doesn't mean that there is anything supernatural happening at the time. This girl does have in her what they say is like the first woman that was a water woman, and that's how they explain the things that she's experiencing. And that's about the story, that's at the start of the book, and then it goes into the life of this girl, and what happens with the grandparents, and then eventually she goes to live with her dad in Kampala, and also about her relationship with this boy, and basically just a growing up story. And I think that for me, I found some of it really cool, like the interwoven mythology in it. There's also a little bit of a mystery with her mother, and the past of her family in general. And she's kind of slowly discovering all of these things, and I think that gives the plot a direction, and I think it's very well done. But it did not, again, I was not able to connect with it. I think that the elements were a bit too isolated from each other for me to feel like it was one story. So we had the story of her with the family, we had the story of her with this boy, we had the story of her going to Kampala and having a completely new life. We had the story of this mythology, but it was not, for me at least, it was not integrated well enough, all of it. I appreciated every single element individually, but I think as a book, I needed something a little bit more cohesive. But I think that it is still a very good book, and I think that a lot of people obviously are loving it, and I think it has a shot at winning the prize. But yeah, it's not my personal favorite. And similarly also with Rainbow Milk. Rainbow Milk is about this boy who was a Jehovah's Witness, but he very quickly realizes that he's gay, so he decides to leave his home and move to London. And when he arrives to London, he has nothing, so he ends up becoming a male prostitute. And obviously that is very hard, and he has a lot of issues with it, and it's basically the story of him struggling to do what he wants to do with his life, despite of all of the barriers that were put there for him because of the religion of his family, because of his sexuality, because of his age, because of his class, all of these different elements. And again, this was very powerful at times. The way that he talks about the experiences of this boy are really touching, and also the language itself is really crafted, in my opinion. But again, similar to Are We Home Yet, there are some flashbacks back and forth, because he also comes from a Jamaican father that disappeared. So there's actually a lot of similarities between Rainbow Milk and Are We Home Yet? But yeah, like that comes back and at points, and for me it felt like the pacing of the story was not somehow it was not right. Like it had high and lows over and over again, instead of having like built into a higher end of the story. The end of the story basically happened like at the middle of the book, for me at least. So yeah, that pacing, and again the flashbacks that didn't need to be there, in my opinion. I thought that the structure was a bit messy, but everything else about the book I really enjoyed, and I think it was still a valuable experience, and I really like the book, and I think more people should read it, because these experiences are often not that easy to find, and I think this is a very good example of it. So yeah, I did enjoy the book. I don't think again that it can win, just because I think the structure was a little bit off, and I think that's kind of basic. So yeah. So if you have been keeping count, I think that The First Woman, Antiemetic for Homesickness, and Inferno are probably the three favorites from each category. I would like Antiemetic for Homesickness to win, because I think that it's very current and it's very beautiful, at least what I have read of it. But I would not be mad if any of the other two win it. And again, I have not read Inferno, so my base on this is based on other people's opinions rather than my own. But I have not heard anyone criticize it, so I'm expecting it to be very good. And maybe if it wins, I will read it at some point. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the winner of the Jhalak prize. I'm sorry I cannot give you a definite answer of what I think is gonna win, but yeah, those are my options that I think can win and should win, and I want to win. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have read any of these books, if you have any opinions on them. And if you have any opinion on the Jhalak prize, have you followed it? Did you like it? Yeah, and until next video, bye!